Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dunker Spot. We are part of 342 Productions. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me as always is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. Steve, how are you doing, sir?
Aha, feeling good, feeling great. Actually, I'm not feeling great, a little ill, under the weather, but happy to be here, excited to be here. So I didn't want to lie to you. Thank you, Dunkers, for once again embracing your bounce. Dunker Nation, let's ride. YouTube, hi, hello. Nekias, see a bit fresh cut on the road. Ready to give us some W draft thoughts down the line. Hopefully you will have a different fever than me. It is time to hoop it up.
It is time to hoop it up indeed. First and foremost, Steve, I appreciate you pushing through. Hope you feel better soon. Secondly, hello everyone to the YouTubers. If you're still watching, we appreciate y'all. Thank you for rocking with us. Third, I am in Brooklyn right now. By the time you see this or listen to this, I will no longer be in Brooklyn, but I am here for the W draft. So excited to tap into that later this afternoon. Fourth, very excited to dig into the play-in / the playoff series that we know of right now. This is the most fun time of the year. Very excited to dig into these matchups. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about it. With the West play-in game starting first on Tuesday. So again, by the time you check this out, or by the time it's released, you'll have those games later in the night. We will start with the West. We will start with the Anthony Davis revenge game. We got Pelicans. We got Lakers. The Lakers won the season series 3-1. And ultimately, with this one, I kind of go in wondering, how are the Pelicans going to match up with LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Or more specifically, what are they going to do against that two-man game? Because as we've talked about the Pelicans defense this year, very reliant on those early rotations. They'll creep JV up. They'll try to force those pick and rolls down the sideline. And with the Lakers being able to space in creative ways, having like a D'Angelo Russell in the weak side corner, having Austin Reeves in the weak side corner, they've been able to play with the Pelicans' help. And on top of that, how they've doled out the matchups, at least during the regular season series, where they will have Brandon Ingram on LeBron or they'll sprinkle in some Zion on LeBron. It hasn't been Herb Jones. The Lakers, again, have been able to kind of move Herb around to remove him from primary help responsibilities. And because of that, you're getting two on the ball. You're getting Anthony Davis rolling, getting into open pockets of space to get lobs there. The Pelicans just have not been able to – they haven't been able to figure out that pairing. And so the biggest question for me coming into this one is, what do the Pelicans do against those two? And how do they plan on matching up against those two?
Well, there's one person we need to talk about first. This is no disrespect to Anthony Davis, but it's LeBron James. Can the Pelicans find their defense against LeBron James? Because Nekias, 4 games against the New Orleans Pelicans. LeBron James, 28.3 points, 11.8 assists, 6.3 rebounds. 53% from the field, 60% from 3, 92% from the line.
Seems pretty good.
I'm gonna let those sink in for a second. But to me, beyond the numbers and the wins and losses, it's the way that LeBron has looked to attack the Pelicans when they face off that continues to stand out to me. He's had that look in his eye during those games. He's been very decisive. He's trying to pick them apart. When you watch even the last game of the season, anytime they've matched up, watch the communication LeBron has on both ends of the floor. Look at the way he pushes in transition. And look at the way he takes apart their coverages. Okay, Jonas Valanciunas, you're in. It's a drop. Here's a pocket pass. We know in pick and roll, the Pelicans like to load up their help, have their low man on the weak side of the floor, come in early and help. You know what? Let's cut back door from the corner. Let's get a couple layups off that. Or you're not in early because we got those? Well, here's a lob. Oh, you guys want to switch? I know you're switching. Let's hit the slip real quick. Mind the game. They talked about it. I know you don't want to give up this switch, New Orleans. Well, let's go to a handoff. Austin Reeves, you're over here on the right side. Let me just hand off with you real quick. Here's CJ McCollum. Oh, you gave me this switch against Jose Alvarado and or Dyson Daniels. I will post up. That seems like a good idea. Oh, you want this switch, but you don't want that switch. So, Austin Reeves, again, empty side. Let's play out of it. That ultimately is going to put the Pelicans in a tough spot where their versatility is tested, because which scheme do you actually want to go with? They tried everything. None of it really felt comfortable. They're going to have to pick and choose. And it's going to have to be, do we want the switching and versatility of Larry Nance? Do we want to play Zion at the 5? Or do we trust these minutes of JV in a drop? But they got to choose something at some point. Because if LeBron is going to be able to dictate terms and pick you apart, and also D'Angelo Russell's getting off-ball cuts, and we're getting stops and getting easy baskets in transition on top of Anthony Davis being able to do multiple things, it gets really tough for the Pelicans. So I think that's a very fair question. It's probably the key to this game. If New Orleans wants to beat the Lakers, they've got to find a way to get LeBron out of this comfort zone. But it's tough when he gets in this space.
Yeah, and I think this kind of goes into like a broader, I guess, issue I have with New Orleans in this particular matchup. They don't really have a LeBron guy, which he's LeBron James, so nobody really has a LeBron guy. But at least in terms of the archetype, teams generally try to put bigger wings on LeBron. As good as Herb Jones is, we've talked about him throughout the year. I had him on my fake all defense first team ballot, a little bit lower on the defensive player of the year ballot. Like Herb is elite, but Herb is more comfortable against, the shiftier guards or the more elusive wings versus like your power guys like a LeBron or a Kawhi. And because the Pelicans have shifted more to, at least during the regular season matchups, let's put Brandon Ingram on LeBron. Let's see if we can get Herb to kind of cut the water off on D'Angelo Russell to take away some of that pick and roll stuff, or just to have him on the weak side since they're going to have to load up that help and just have Herb splitting things on the back end. It just makes it really tough to take LeBron away. I guess on that front, do you feel like we will see more of like Zion on LeBron? We've seen Zion take on tougher matchups later in games in the second half of the year. Is that a matchup that you give him? And then maybe you can lean into more of like switching the LeBron AD stuff in particular. Or are you more in conservation mode with Zion on that front?
It's tough because even if you do it right from the jump, eventually you have to pivot or you build up into it. I thought he had a nice inspired stretch there in the game against the Lakers where he had the LeBron matchup, jumped a couple switches, was active, a little full court pressure. Like I liked that. How sustainable is that over the course of a 48-minute game, considering what they also need him to do offensively? I'm not sure. But I think it's just going to be a mix, honestly. You can't give LeBron just one person, one look. So they're going to have to be able to mix it up and feel comfortable with whichever way they go. But they got to be decisive with it. Like even when they went to switches, the switches never really felt clean in that last game of the regular season. And it just never felt comfortable. So they just need to make sure whatever they're going to do, they live with it. And you got to live with the results. That's the position that LeBron puts you in, especially when he makes those timely plays, those timely baskets. You're looking at the table and wondering, where do I point to?
Got you. Who's your X factor heading into this one?
Well, I had a question, guys.
Oh,
before I get to my X factor.
All right, what you got?
Can the Pelicans figure out how to unlock Zion in this matchup? Can the Pelicans figure out how to get to their flow in this matchup against the Lakers? I feel like that's been a bigger issue as well. If you're not able to score against LA, they get rebounds, they get easier baskets, they get out in transition. Now they don't have to live in the half court as much. And that is the Lakers playoff template formula right there. Mm-hmm. But the way that they defended Zion, especially LeBron in these matchups, I am about 5-6 feet off of you. I am containing all penetration. I will be at the elbow. If you would like to drive, I'll be right here. You want to have someone set a screen? We'll switch that. Doesn't even matter. AD, Rui, whoever it is, we'll switch that. And we're going to show help. Because the trickiest part is they tried. Like they started the game with a double pick and roll, and LeBron barely crossed the free throw line. And so even when LeBron switches, guess who's on the weak side helping? LeBron James. Guess who's really good on the weak side helping? LeBron James.
Still LeBron James.
So what that did was it also messes up some of the movement stuff with Zion, where they like to use him as a screener or have him get handoffs. Well, if LeBron is not cooperating, he's all the way down by the block, he can help on the roll and also recover to the pop if it's Zion. So that's where it gets tricky. How do they now find a way to break what the Lakers did? Because they were just loaded up, ready, early help. And the Pelicans have to be able to maintain the flow and maintain their movement and find a way to keep the ball going from side to side. You know, the tricky part is because of your lineups, you're going to have what some would consider a non-shooter. And if LeBron's in the game, LeBron's going to guard one of those non-shooters and he's going to roam. So you have to figure out a way to make sure that you're continuing to move it and get to drive and kick. Because if you have them containing drives and the ball's not moving, it's a lot of one-on-one. And I don't know if the Pelicans want to live in that area. But that does bring me to my X factors.
Okay.
Because I do think the Pelicans have to force the Lakers into rotation. They're going to have to make some shots. They're going to have to be aggressive and decisive. Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy. Those are the guys. Those are guys who are going to have to make shots and make plays to either make the Lakers defense pay or force them to pivot. You know, if they have those handoff actions where they play out of the elbow and there's dribble handoffs for them or they're cutting, they've got to be ready to look to shoot those. Like they've got to be able to come off, shoot it, and try and see, do the Lakers want to stay in a drop or they want to come up? Do they want to switch everything and now we can just keep playing, slip out of it? Those are the guys who got to make shots for them.
Got you. And then quickly before I get into my X factors, like, is CJ McCollum going to end up being the key to unlocking things in the half court for New Orleans? Like, I think we've had conversations. You've talked consistently about how important CJ McCollum has been for this Pelicans group. When his productivity is there, the Pelicans generally win. And we've also talked about the point Zion thing as he's leaned into more on-ball usage, the positives of that, and also some of the negatives in terms of what the overall flow looks like. Is CJ as a screener, is that a way to, if the Lakers want to switch that, is that a way to kind of play with LeBron as a helper, if at all possible?
CJ as a screener for Zion?
Yeah.
They tried it. LeBron just stood there in the paint. Austin Reeves did a show on the cover and was gone, and LeBron never moved. So CJ can unlock a lot for the Pelicans, and he probably will, but him as a screener, it hasn't moved LeBron, literally.
Hasn't moved him. Okay. I'm just trying to piece through, like, what could be the options for them to do that. I mean, the easiest thing will be New Orleans being able to force turnovers against the Lakers. If they get sloppy, Pelicans have been top 10 all year long in terms of opponent turnover rate this year. That's kind of the benefit of them defending pick and rolls as aggressively as they generally do. They are able to force some difficult passes. They already get some deflections, get out and run, and that's your way to kind of set up against that Laker offense. If you're able to get the ball to the board, make them pull the ball out of the basket.
I think it's movement. It's just got to be movement. If you don't have it, get off of it, keep things flowing. I think what happens is when a play breaks down, you back up, you try and go one-on-one, or you try to go another action. They're sitting on the drives. Like, the Lakers are committed to sitting on the drives, and they're working hard because they know we have help. If it's not LeBron, it's AD. Someone's back there to help us out. So we're committed to this. So now when the Pelicans look to get to drive and kick, it's not really driving quick. It's drive and and that's the tough part. So that's where it's like you need to have the movement and the balance, especially when you have some of these lineups that might help you defensively, but the Lakers are not worried. They got to be aggressive and try and get paint touches and try and get the Lakers in rotation, make them make multiple efforts. That's the key. Can I give you my Lakers X factors real quick?
Yes.
I have two, guys.
Okay.
It is Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell. Austin Reeves against the New Orleans Pelicans this year, 21 points a game, 5.5 assists, 62% from the field, 45% from three. D'Angelo Russell, 21 points a night, only 3 assists, but 50% from the field, 46.4 from three on 9 3-point attempts per hour. They can't let that happen. Yeah. So while you're right, LeBron and AD, tough to guard, hard to defend, the water has to be turned off with those two. But what we see in a playoff setting, when the Lakers have this type of focus and game plan on what we want to attack or we want to open up, and LeBron's dialed in, Anthony Davis is dialed in, these two can just go out there and play. Mm-hmm. We can attack and transition. We can drive closeouts. We can go and pick and roll. We can just go get our stuff without forcing it. The playmaking burden isn't really on us. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, we just go out there and be aggressive. D'Angelo Russell was able to get off-ball cuts against Herb Jones. Austin Reeves has felt unbothered against the Pelicans all year almost. Mm-hmm. They've got to be able to take those two off the table and make those, 5 for 16 games or 4 for 12. And now because if you have what LeBron brings to the table, you have what Anthony Davis is doing, you have the different ways they're poking you apart, and you have the possessions where they're just ending possessions with a bucket or mixing in an early basket, that's a real tough blend to deal with.
And to that point, I think, again, that's part of why you've seen like a lot of Herb Jones on D-Lo in order to try to at least turn that portion of it off. You already mentioned, we've kind of talked about CJ McCollum already. Outside of that, like, I'm looking at New Orleans center rotation, like you've already kind of alluded to, the Pelicans trying to figure out, okay, who is the 5 that best completes what they want to do on either end of the floor. And so if it's Larry Nance Jr., like, I think JB's averaged a shade over 19 minutes per game in these matchups, which is one of his lower minute loads against any team in the league this year. And I think the third lowest against the Western Conference team this year. if it's going to be Larry Nance Jr., how well will he hold up defensively? Because you have seen when he's in the game, like it's been more switching when he's been in. And in this matchup in particular, it's been more switching when he's been in. So that could be a way to at least make the Lakers use a little bit more time when they go to LeBron and AD stuff. But offensively, what can he do to kind of enhance the movement, to your part? The Pelicans' best chance at getting the Lakers' defense to bend is to get that movement going and to get those shots to fall. Like in the one game that the Pelicans beat the Lakers in, the Lakers could knock down shots. The Pelicans made 17 threes. And so if Larry Nance Jr. can juice things with this screening, with the ball movement in particular, just being a guy that can hand off to multiple players within the same possession, that could be the way to kind of move the Lakers around. So I am looking at Larry Nance Jr., if JB's in, like how solid would he be defensively? Can he give them some relief buckets offensively? Try to slow things down there. And on the Lakers front, I figured you were going to go with the backcourt there. I echo your sentiments. D'Lo and Austin Reeves is going to be very important. Rui Hachimura will be another guy that I would point to. That's someone that will likely get the Brandon Ingram assignment. He got that during the regular season matchups. The shooting is important. The cutting has been important. The screening, particularly if the Pelicans are going to go into more switching, his ability to screen and slip can be a threat to that Pelicans defense. And so I think his production on both ends of the floor could be a bellwether in this game. Who do you have winning this play-in matchup?
As of right now, I got the Lakers. The Pelicans could easily be like, hey, we have a game plan. We're tired of this. Get them out of here. Energize. I will go with the Lakers right now.
I got you. I also lean Lakers right now. Though I do wonder, again, if Larry Nance Jr. gets more playing time, do you get more switching? Something that we've seen sparingly as I was like looking through the LeBron pick and rolls in particular. We didn't see a lot of unders against LeBron. Like part of that's just a testament to how well LeBron has shot this year, particularly in the second half of the year. But the Pelicans haven't gone to that super often in the regular season matchups. I do wonder, to your point about we have a game plan in this one, do we see more of the unders? Let's have JB in a deeper drop. If it's Brandon Ingram or if it's Herb or if it's Zion, let's just duck under this high pick and roll. And let's dare LeBron to take some jump shots. Or if he is going to hit the pocket pass, AD, I need to see you knock down these push shots or these short jumpers. Is that a way to at least bend the shot profile a little bit? But as of right now, like the Lakers do have a lot of matchups to poke at. I would probably lean Lakers right now. Any closing thoughts before we move to the second play-in game?
Nope. Let's move to the Bay.
All right, let's move to the Bay. The 9-10 matchup, the Sacramento Kings and the Golden State Warriors. Season series tied at 2-2, though, which is always fun to kind of go back through these matchups and prep for the pod and stuff. Last matchup was January 25th. These teams look very different than the last time they saw each other. So you can throw a lot of the previous stuff out of the window. As far as my biggest question heading into this one, like I have granular thoughts about this, but my biggest question, honestly, is how are the Warriors planning to match up in this game? Because as I mentioned, like their last game was January 25th. Kevon Looney started in that basketball game. Kevon Looney has not started a basketball game since that day. We've seen Klay, he started that game, but Klay also went to the bench and has now gone back to the starting lineup. Andrew Wiggins has come off the bench in games this year. He started in that game. So, like, at a very basic level, I want to know who the Warriors trust in this matchup. Because right now, I could just bank in Steph and Draymond, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's movement with any of the other three spots. It could be Kevon Looney coming back because of his familiarity with Domantas Sabonis. We've seen a lot of Draymond Green and Trace Jackson Davis to close out the year. You can continue to lean on Trace if you want to. If you want to go smaller and go Draymond at the 5, give him the Sabonis matchup early. You can go Jonathan Kuminga, slide him back into the starting lineup if you want to. I'm really curious to see how the Warriors plan on matching up. And then from there, how they dole out the defensive matchups depending on who they start. So I think that'd probably be my biggest one heading in on the Warriors front.
I guess the question mark is, do you want to throw out the Looney, roll the dice, and have him play off Sabonis? Do you want Draymond to take that matchup from the start? Do you trust Trace Jackson Davis to do it? So I would imagine Chris Paul, Wiggins, Klay start. I would guess Kuminga, but you never know. I feel confident with 4. Steph, Klay, Wiggins, Draymond will be in there. I don't know who the 5th is going to be. Could be a roll of the dice. Yeah. But I think it's more so, what do we want to do? Do we want to hand Draymond the Sabonis matchup first and say turn the water off? Do we want to start him and Trace and say Draymond, you roam? I don't know how much they want to do that. I'm leaning they give it to Draymond first, but I've been wrong before.
Okay. And then from there, like the Draymond roaming portion is interesting because like he's done a lot of the roaming, in these earlier matchups. Again, we haven't seen them post All-Star break. But Draymond got Harrison Barnes early on in a lot of those matchups. And, in a vacuum, then you wouldn't expect that to be a roaming point for Draymond, but it kind of plays with the efficiency for Harrison Barnes and also just his willingness to take 7, 8, 9 threes if you're going to roam off that far. So it's a little bit of psychological warfare there. But if they do give him that roaming matchup, like I'm curious to see like how he handles that. But it's also different because with the Kings missing Kevin Huerter now, and you sliding in likely Keon Nelson to that spot, Keon has knocked down shots. He hasn't knocked down enough shots to where the game plan has changed for him. Teams are still like just giving him those shots and daring him to beat them. So does that become a roaming spot? As we've seen in other like actual playoff games, we've seen Draymond just get a point guard. In this case, Draymond, you get the De'Aaron Fox matchup. Let's try to take away these drives. Let's turn some of these pick and rolls into switches. Like Draymond can be moved around quite a bit. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. And then just on the Kings front, without Herter, without Malik Monk coming off the bench, just what is the shot creation going to look like for this crew? What is the blend going to be like with De'Aaron Fox? How much Keegan Murray do we see? Quick spoiler, he's going to end up being one of my X factors, so I dig in on Keegan a little bit later. But just what type of shots can the Kings get to? What kind of flow can they get to against this Golden State defense?
It's a fair point, and to just kind of jump on that, it's interesting to watch what Sacramento could do in this one because they've had to change their identity to a degree. Like some of the work they've done already to try and mix in more pick and roll, to try and play a little bit differently to prepare for the playoffs. But when you no longer have Malik Monk or Kevin Huerter, you kind of are in this position where we can do some of the movement stuff, but the record's going to scratch, the possession's going to grind at some point. We can go pick and roll, but, is it going to be De'Aaron Fox's shot selection? Is Sabonis going to attack when he gets in a pocket pass? Are we going to be able to keep the advantage if we get one? So it's kind of which way are they going to go? Mm-hmm. I think Barnes, Ellis, and Murray are going to have to make a lot of plays. They're going to have to show up in a big way. It's kind of funny, man. Because, post All-Star break, and I know I'm not excluding garbage time, the Sacramento Kings, while being 15-13, number 9 in defensive rating.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate Golden State's number 7, but Sacramento's kind of transitioned. Sacramento's kind of transitioned to this defensive identity by default where, hey, we need to be better at this and no, we have to do this every single night. And it kind of leads me to a reverse of your question with Golden State. Which version of Golden State are we going to get? In the sense that what kind of shots are they going to try and get? Like we know the Warriors' identity. We know they can get to it. Can they sustain it in this matchup? Is the ball going to be moving? Are they going to punish the Kings for those breakdowns when they overhelp? Are they going to be able to get dribble penetration? Or is this going to be too many quick shots in transition? What is that part of it going to be like? Mm-hmm. Are we going to lean to Stephen Curry and pick and roll? Are we going to rely on our movement? Are we going to hit a blend? Like that's where I'm very intrigued to see if Sacramento's defense can hold up and if Golden State can hit the right buttons. Because again, these teams haven't played in a very long time. And it's ironic. They've gone through all these different twists and turns, respectively, for their season. And Golden State actually won one more game than they did last year. And Sacramento is only 2 off from last year. And instead of a game 7, it is a game 1
game
on
7.
Tuesday. That's it.
Yeah, just to bounce off of that, like not super dissimilar to what you've said. Like that's kind of the fun for the matchup for me with Sacramento defensively, because you're going to miss Huerter and Monk, the shot creation, the shooting in general, the movement, the way they kind of break things down. But substituting Keon Ellis and Davion Mitchell into their slots, like in theory, it should make it a little bit easier for them to defend some of the off-ball stuff from Golden State. Davion Mitchell, nasty screen navigator if you want to keep the matchup static. And if you were trying to get like some Clay and Dre off-ball action together, like those should be relatively clean switches between Davion and Keon if they're on the floor at the same time. So like they feel better equipped to deal with some of the randomness within Golden State's offense. I also kind of worry about Keon in this matchup, less about ability, but something that we kind of joked about as we were watching, was it King Suns over the weekend? I was like, Keon's really good defensively. I feel like, in addition to him needing to be aggressive as a help defender, just because of some of the scheme stuff that Sacramento does, there also feels like a lack of trust sometimes. But I don't know if these guys are going to be able to contain the ball here. Let me cheat over, get a dig in to get back out the mine. I do wonder, in light of how Golden State moves around, what Keon is going to look like as a help defender. Is he going to be baited into, oh snap, there was a slip against this off-ball screen. Let me get over here and see if I can give my guy half a second. Does that lead to a relocation behind him and now an open shot? I wonder how the Warriors are able to kind of play off of that aggression from him. And also the Davion to that degree, because he also aggressive dig down. He has really good hands. So I guess I want to see like how they really fare. But like in theory, they should be better equipped to deal with that. And if this becomes muddy or it becomes like a late game shot making fest, De'Aaron Fox versus Steph Curry should be pretty fun. Like all of these matchups have been pretty close, and they'll come down to the wire. And so it should be fun.
And those two have played very well against each other in their respective teams. It also comes down to Sabonis. Can Sabonis beat the boogeyman as far as the Warriors go, to where we're going to play off you? He's been trying to hit people all year long.
He has.
He's going to have to do it. He's going to have to do it in this playing game. He's got to show up at a high level. The Kings need him. They need Fox. Obviously, others to fill the gaps, but Sabonis is going to have to be aggressive offensively and try and make a statement that he's not just going to make plays. I'm gonna make these shots. Mix in the mid range, if they're in drop. Take a couple of them. Drive left. We spin back right one time.
You use the right hand. That would be helpful. Ultimately, you just want him to have a good game if you're a Kings fan or if you're just a Kings supporter in general. I think Sabonis needs a quick start. I think Sabonis needs like the 8 points in the first 3 minutes of this one. Or Draymond has picked up a foul or two. Or if Kevon Looney does start, Kevon Looney's in foul trouble. Like I do think Domantas Sabonis needs to set the tone as a scorer in this one. Because in light of some of the movement shooting being missing, like he's going to have to be a key contributor in actually bending Golden State's defense. He has to be someone that they feel comfortable or they feel like they have to send to him when he gets the ball inside the arc. If they're able to just kind of play off, duck under some of the handoff stuff and then recover from there, like you mentioned earlier, like there have been record scratches with Keon coming off these handoffs. There have been record scratches with Keegan Murray coming off some of the handoffs. And to that point, I guess I'd kind of flow into the X factor. Like Keegan Murray is mine for Sacramento. When you're missing as much shooting as you are, like naturally he is the heir apparent to you need to get your volume up. You have to take more touches. You have to get these buckets. But he's going to be very important to their flow. And that's why it's been fun to kind of track from his opening summer league to now what he looks like as a driver, how quick his decisions are being made. Obviously, the shooting pops, both as a standstill guy and somebody that can get it off of movement. But he's going to have to be a key contributor in not only just knocking down the shots, but doing so within rhythm, to making sure that Golden State has to be on high alert whenever he's coming off of something. If he becomes catch and hold guy, I can't say it's literally not going to work because you can still win basketball games another way. It will be more difficult for Sacramento to pull this off if he's also hesitant on the catch. And in addition to that, like he is going to be keyed in off ball defensively. He's going to have to be tight on switches. If he does get the Clay matchup, like Clay's defended a lot of Keegan in the regular season matchups. If Keegan has it on the other end, the trail is going to have to be tight there. If they do switch, it's going to have to be timely and physical without fouling. He's going to be a very important part for the Sacramento Kings. So he would be my Kings X factor. And then for Golden State, it's just the Don Draymond bigs for me. One, I don't know which one of them are going to get the call. And if it's both, I don't know what the minute distribution is going to be like there. Like I still would guess when we get to the end of this game, if it's close, Draymond's going to be closing at the 5. I think Golden State's going to close small, but they have to get to that point. If Trace Jackson Davis does get minutes or gets the start, he's obviously earned that trust with the way that he's played this year, particularly post All-Star break. Will he be able to hold up against Sabonis if he gets that matchup? And with Kevon Looney, if he's dusted off, can he defend Sabonis at a high level again? Can he shut things down? Can he get some timely finishes on the offensive end? As Sacramento likely overcommits to Steph coming off of something, Clay coming off of something, can he finish at the rim? Can he make the right short roll reads if they open up? So those are probably the guys I'm looking at as far as X factors. What say you?
For the Warriors, I have Clay. Post All-Star break 9-3 when Klay scores 20 or more. It feels like his scoring, his shooting is more impactful for this group as they have presently found their flow. I think if he's able to knock down some of these big shots, especially in that environment, able to get 2 on the ball with some of the off-ball movement, I think that just opens up a different layer, which is key. Also a hat tip to Wiggins drives or Kuminga drives. For the Kings, Davion Mitchell, Keon Ellis. I mean, you can pick a name out of the hat for the Kings. But guess what, Nekias? Davion Mitchell, 36% from 3 on the year. I know that probably doesn't move you. For the month of April, 41.2% from 3 on 4.3 attempts. March, 41.7% on 2.3 attempts. February, 47.6% on 1.8 attempts. He's 40% post All-Star break. Keon Ellis, 45.3% from 3 post All-Star break. Those two are going to have to take and make shots when they're available. If they can make the Warriors pay, the Kings can feel even more comfortable having some of these defensive-minded lineups out there. So they're going to need those two on both sides. So those guys can cause havoc defensively, knock down shots on the other end. I think that gives the Kings a pretty good shot.
All right, there you go. And who do you have winning this game?
Man, that crowd is probably going to be very excited and hyped and want the beam to be lit. And so that is a factor, which would not surprise me if it elevates. I'm going to go Warriors here.
Okay.
Only because Steph Curry. That's about it.
I think that's a fair reason. I don't want to go chalk, but I also feel like this feels like the Warriors have more answers than the Kings do. Like, I feel like the Kings have to thread a very specific needle in this one. So I'll go Warriors as well. Let's move to the East very quickly. On Wednesday, kicking things off will be the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. Season series tied at 2 apiece. Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid played 1 game apiece during the regular season matchup, so that is fun. Biggest question heading into this one, very consistent with my Miami Heat commentary this year, and kind of disappointingly has been consistent post All-Star break as well, because that's generally the ramp-up period. But which version of Jimmy Butler are the Heat going to get is the question that looms largest for me heading into this one. Because I think when he is taking and making pull-ups, when he is driving the basket, when he is getting paint touches and looking to finish at the basket versus just trying to draw a defender and making passes out to the corner, those are valuable. But when he's not passing up layup attempts, he's a totally different dude. He forces a different level of attention from defenses. That creates easier shots for the Miami Heat, and that gets the offense to a level that it needs to be in light of how elite the defense has been this year. If Jimmy Butler is passive or if the shots aren't falling, it becomes very difficult for the Heat to score consistently. And so heading in, what level of aggression are we seeing from Jimmy Butler? He doesn't necessarily have to take 12 shots in the first quarter for me, but I'm curious to see how many drives we see in the first quarter from him. How deep into the paint does he go? How early are the dribble pickups, if at all? And what kind of tone is he looking to set offensively?
I like that. I think that this is a nice environment to try and get the most motivated Jimmy Butler that you could possibly get. A road game with a chance to go right to the playoffs and get some revenge on the way. So I anticipate that we will see a motivated Jimmy Butler. The Kyle Lowry factor does make that interesting, but I think that's going to be it. For me, I would probably tie it into what type of shots is Miami going to be willing to take and make? What kind of offense are they going to generate? Can the Heat make defenses pay for showing help on the weak side? What can the Heat generate if they get double teams? And so I feel like that's my standard for Miami around this time of year. They've worked against it. They've seen a lot of different things during the season. They know that defenses are going to throw different things at Jimmy and Bam, just to try and take them away. You know, we're gonna load up. We're gonna show help. We're not gonna give you the easy pocket pass. Like, we're not gonna give you that shot. Those two are gonna have to make reads. The ball has to move. It can't stick. The Heat overall have to make quick decisions. They have to be ready and take and make those shots. Because sometimes it just comes down to you're playing drop, Jimmy's making that pull up, now what? Or you're taking away Bam's role, now he's got the pocket pass, he's making that shot, now what? Now how do we play it after that? Does Bam have a mismatch and he posts up? What does that lead into? Does Jimmy Butler against a person you don't want to guard Jimmy Butler is still a very, very effective offense for the Miami Heat this time of year. And you can think of a couple people on the Philadelphia 76ers who may get targeted in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So, the thing about Philadelphia is they're comfortable keeping Embiid in a drop to take away the role. And they're comfortable with showing help from the strong side and just making you kick, and now we'll just recover and play out of it. That's where Miami has to knock down shots, drive, continue the advantage, and keep playing. So that's probably my biggest thing with Miami.
I got you. And on the Philly front, what's your biggest question heading in?
Can the Miami Heat contain Tyrese Maxey? No one's happier that Joel Embiid is back than Tyrese Maxey. And all the work that the Sixers did to generate offense for Maxey, the reps, getting trapped in pick and roll, it's felt like he's just let his hair down now. And this is the payoff for the work that Philadelphia did, because we already saw the growth of Maxey and Embiid together in two-man game. And now you can see they can mix in empty side pick and roll. They can go with pass and cut or chase actions. They can go with the vaunted pocket pass, even though Embiid is just kind of popping right now. Mm-hmm. I'm at the 3-point line. You know what it is. But now they can mix in where Maxey gets off a stagger. He hits Embiid. Now he cuts off. And for Miami, that can present a unique situation depending on the lineup, because Bam's going to be in a drop, not an automatic switch until, they get a little bit more size and length in there. Maxey gets downhill, gets a layup. Maxey stops and pops for a 3. Now the pocket pass opens up. And I think the key for Miami is they have to make it as tough as possible on Tyrese Maxey, because outside of just those fun schematic things, Tyrese Maxey, fast, quick, can drive the ball. Miami Heat sometimes struggles to contain when people try to drive the ball. And you got to remember, Tyrese Maxey and the Sixers will also look to attack matchups. And if you look at the Heat, there are a couple people on that roster who will have to get their footwork ready in this matchup. And Tyrese Maxey's had some fun against Miami. 37 points, 11 assists on 57% shooting earlier this month in Miami. Hey, Nekias, not counting that game, would you like to know the previous game that Tyrese Maxey had 30-plus points and 10 assists?
I would imagine it was another Heat Sixers game.
March 18th against Miami. Hey, guess what? February 14th, Tyrese Maxey, 30 points. Outside of that Christmas game, he's been cooking. Miami's got to take him off the board.
Yeah, I think it's a little over 27 points per game against Miami this year for Tyrese Maxey. And it's funny to say that that's kind of it's not a figure that represents how dominant he's been. Because even in that Christmas game, he got a good look that he just missed. And Miami sent a lot of attention his way as well. But he also just missed shots that he normally makes. And so for him to still average a relatively efficient 27 during the regular season matchups, it kind of showcases how dangerous he is. And I guess on the Maxey front, I'll ask you a quick one. What's going to be more important to slowing down Tyrese Maxey? Just having the right matchup, the right scheme, or making shots offensively?
Making shots helps, but it's not like Maxey's only hurting them in transition. Mm-hmm. It takes a little bit off the board if they got to take it out of the net, but again, he's quick. So, I mean, making shots is going to help. They need to contain his drives. That's the number one thing for me. He can't be able to get in the paint, because here's the thing about Philly, right? They have more movement. They have more dribble handoffs. They have Joel Embiid, who I believe is tied second for most 30-point, 10-rebound games, despite only playing 39 games. So
what a funny
stat. That's a whole issue. But there's more flow to what they do, and they can get to what they want in different ways, as opposed to it just being static and set like it has been before. So you might have to defend a couple cuts or handoffs, and now, oh, wait, Joel Embiid has it at the elbow. He can self-create. Or, oh, no, Tyrese Maxey now has it after we've defended for 8 seconds. Mm-hmm. And so if you're in that kind of battle and they've unlocked all of that, it gets really tough.
I got you. Only thing I would say on just the question front before we move into the X factors, I do wonder how much attention is going to be shown to Joel Embiid. Naturally, a lot of it, but in terms of pure double teams, how often are the Heat going to press that button? So we've seen throughout the year in this matchup and overall, the Heat are fine with Bam. You're on an island because you are one of the best defenders in the league, if not the best defender in the league. Do your best. You want to try to limit 3-point attempts in this particular matchup. Do what you can. We've also seen heavy doubles from Miami. We've seen zone from Miami. I do wonder like just how much they're going to allocate to Joel Embiid in this, especially in light of, as you mentioned, how dangerous Tyrese Maxey is. You may already have to, allocate a little bit more resources just to try to slow down those drives. So just watching the Embiid factor because he's not 100% right now. Still very good, but he's not 100%. So I wonder if that kind of plays into the thinking of how they handle him. I guess head again. Who are your X factors for this
one? The Miami Heat wing room. Haywood Highsmith, Caleb Martin, Jaime Jaquez Jr., all of y'all. They need all of y'all.
Yes.
They need shots, cuts, drives, defense. They need y'all to be effective because I think those guys are going to be the key to help beat these Sixers' help defense. And the better they are offensively, the stronger Miami can be with that lineup versatility. And that's where it can get really fun for them on the other end of the floor, to where we feel better about some of what we can throw out there defensively. And we're not really costing ourselves on this end. We feel we have good size, good length. If you get those guys going, I think that's a big key for Miami. So that's my X factor for the Heat.
Okay. For me, it's probably just the second unit, honestly, if I had to pick one. Which on that note, Kevin Love did leave Sunday's game a little bit early against the Raptors, so we'll see what his status is for that play-in game. But if I had to narrow it down, you've already nailed the wings. I'll probably say Tyler Hero. Led the Heat in scoring during the regular season series, did not shoot super efficiently, particularly from three, under 30%. He's probably going to see a lot of drop against Philadelphia, especially with Embiid still ramping up to 100%. The pull-ups are going to be there for him. Will he take them? When will he take them? And when he is presented with playmaking opportunities, will he nail the right pass in the appropriate time? I think he can take some pressure off of Jimmy Butler as a creator. He can help unlock Bam Adebayo as a roller if he has it going. So Tyler Hero's probably going to be the big guy for me as he works his way back. And on the Sixers front, who do you have as an X factor?
Kelly Oubre, they needed scoring. Kyle Lowry. If you want to have some fun, folks, go look up the amount of field goal attempts that Kyle Lowry has versus the amount of assists that Kyle Lowry has as a Philadelphia 76er. A little homework. Yeah.
There you go. And with you having Lowry Oubre, I would say Nicholas Batum, honestly. I think he has, as he's gotten healthier and as he's factored more into Philadelphia's rotation, like he's had to defend a lot of players for the Sixers group. A lot of that is injury related, but there is just a level of versatility that he has. And in terms of feeding Embiid, having him one pass away, the shooting is valuable. If there is a scramble situation, his passing and just his quick decision-making helps puncture things. And if the Heat are going to be super aggressive with their help, or if they are going to go to zone, having Batum kind of flashing all over the place, I think will help dice that up. And just the entry passing in general. If we do have Bam taking on the Embiid matchup one-on-one, we know Bam is very good at fronting the big. Nicholas Batum has the size and the passing ability to make those passes. It really make it tough for Miami to load up even if they want to. So I would keep an eye on Nicholas Batum in this one. Steve, who do you have winning this game?
I'm going to go to Miami Heat.
Okay. I think Philly takes this one. So we have our first official break of the podcast in terms of these predictions. Final play-in game, we have Hawks-Bulls. The Bulls won the regular season series 2-1. Question is a simple one for me heading into this one. Which defense is going to show up?
Mine was only, does anyone want to play defense? And mainly the Atlanta Hawks, do you want to play defense? Atlanta Hawks, do you want to play defense? Atlanta Hawks, do you want to play defense? How you give up 157 points twice? Twice! Am I incorrect on that? They did it twice, right?
I think they did it twice, and the Pacers scored lots and lots and lots of points on Sunday.
Do y'all want to defend, or are you going to wait till you're down by 8 points and then you want to start playing basketball? And Chicago, can you generate offense and actually keep the ball moving after your first action? We're going to get Nikola Vucevic classic play-in moment. This is going to be DeMar against DeJounte in a pull-up contest. Get your acts together, all right?
I was not expecting you to be fed up with both of these teams at the same time.
Bulls win.
Okay. I am sorry for Hawks and Bulls fans. I think Atlanta makes more shots in this one. The defense thing, one, Chicago's defense post All-Star break has just been, we'll say, unkind. And Atlanta's defense has not been great all year long. They had the stretch where they were like right at league average. Like after Trey went down, they switched more. They toned down on the blitzing. They had more size in the lineup, all that good stuff. Trey is back. He's going to need to continue to give effort defensively. I've been complimentary of the effort level raising for him this year. He's going to have to nail it in this game because otherwise we're going to get late in this one and it's just going to be DeMar putting him in action, and that could get dicey. You don't want to give Chicago 2 on the ball, especially since, as Steve alluded to, they're not a team that moves it all that well anyway. Don't give them easy cracks. But I think DeJounte and Trey get it done. I think they make enough shots. I think they're able to put Vooch in action. And I think ultimately they knock down enough shots to get it done. Let's get into some playoff talk. We'll start in the East since we're already here. We have the Bucks and the Pacers facing off. Per Shams Charania of The Athletic a little bit earlier today, Giannis, his status for game one is very much up in the air. I think it's fair to say that's probably the biggest question heading into this series. How much Giannis will the Bucks get? And when they do get him, how healthy is he going to be? Aside from that, the Pacers did win the season series 4-1 when you include the in-season tournament play. So my biggest question is going to be related to Giannis because it kind of has to be. Just what are the Bucks generating offensively without Giannis on the board? What are they going to get to? Naturally, the usage for Damian Lillard is going to rise. We'll likely see even more of the Dame, Brook Lopez pick and rolls, the super high pick and rolls, and really force Miles Turner to get out of the paint and see how he deals in space. But beyond that, if Indiana is able to shut down the primary action for Milwaukee, what exactly are they flowing to without Giannis on the floor? What kind of impact will Chris Middleton have on the second side of actions? Just generally worrying about like what that's going to look like. Because I think removing Giannis, one, he's really good, duh. But there is just a level of paint presence that he has, the drives in particular with Giannis, that you're just going to be missing. And so outside of Dame getting downhill, and he hasn't been the same finisher or the same foul drawer as he's been in previous years, without Giannis, there is just a massive drop-off between Dame and the next most dangerous drive threat for Milwaukee. So I do wonder like how they're able to kind of replicate that part against Indiana's defense, which has gotten better post All-Star break.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is to bounce off that with Milwaukee, because Giannis is the question mark that hangs over all this, because a lot of the question marks you have with Milwaukee could be answered by the person that averaged, 40 and 10 against the Pacers. I think for me, when it comes to, we've seen more movement sets for Dame over the past few games that Giannis has been out. Does that help him in the series? Can he get to the blend of drives and shot making and attacking matchups? I think for me, it's less what they run. It's what do they do after the first part of it. Can they now get back to their flow? Because Giannis was a really good part of that connection flow-wise, where they went from option A to option B. Can they refine that? I think you're going to see a lot of aggression from Bobby Portis. I think he's been playing at a high level. Brook Lopez has been looking to be a little bit more aggressive at times. Patrick Beverley could be the person who is the connector for Milwaukee. I know that sounds wild, but he shoots the shots that he knows he's supposed to shoot, and then he doesn't shoot the rest of them. And that can be up and down, but that could be someone who helps move the ball from side to side. Maybe get Chris Middleton some matchups and some post-ups, try and bounce it out that way. So I think it's going to be more for finding an offensive base in this matchup and trying to figure out the balance, because they look good when they're able to flow in transition. The problem is in this matchup, that plays right into the Pacers' hands. Mm-hmm. So how do they figure out how to have effective offense without letting the tempo go too far left or right? Because I don't know if you want to play super slow. As you mentioned, this is a Pacers team that does work a lot harder defensively. Having Pascal Siakam, having Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Ben Shepherd, that defensive activity has been up, and you've seen a better effort for them at times to be physical against movement. Miles Turner, a little bit more committed on the weak side to helping. They can lose it pretty quickly. And for Milwaukee, that's where that base is going to be important offensively, to where you have to defend multiple actions, not just one, multiple actions. And so can they put that pressure? Is it going to be, we're putting Tyrese Halliburton in action? Mm-hmm. And so it's cool if you want to go show and recover. It's cool if you want to go show and recover and flow Tyrese to the corner defender. Hey, we're just going to keep doing that because that's going to open up an advantage for us. We just play out of that.
Mm-hmm. I guess a quick question on the Indiana front. Do you think they play with the matchups at all defensively?
In what way?
Like, do you see like a Pascal on Brook in this one so you can turn some of those Dame pick and rolls into switches? You put Miles Turner like a Patrick Beverly, or you hide Tyrese Halliburton somewhere else, or do you think they kind of goes?
I think it'd be something they would do throughout the course of a game, not at the start. Maybe throughout the course of a series, but not at the start. Especially because in theory the Bucks are going to be double big without Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you choose to? Because Bobby Portis is going to hit somebody. That's
confirmed. True. So. It's very much true. Have you caught his interview with with Shams? I would say he is
Grant Williams.
Yeah, among other things. Yeah, I will say Bobby Portis is.
I didn't catch all of it.
Oh no, it's just I would say Bobby Portis is very ready for this postseason run. So to your point about he's going to hit people, he's absolutely going to be amped for this one.
Real quick, it's funny you mentioned like sets. You just unlocked a memory to where Milwaukee in that loss to Orlando ran a pin down for Dame and Patrick Beverly hit Brook. And Patrick Beverly was like, hey, swing it to Chris Middleton. Y'all play. And Brook just shot it. And it went in. So at least it wasn't that.
Hashtag 21. What is your biggest question mark heading into this one?
I mean, it's for me, can Milwaukee sustain defense in this matchup? This is going to be an interesting one. Like this game one, if there's no Giannis, I'm seeing a lot of people saying Indiana's going to win no matter what. Bucks with Doc haven't seen the Pacers. The Bucks haven't seen the Pacers with Pascal. The Bucks have worked to clean up a lot of things defensively under Doc. Tried to be more decisive with their schemes, add more switching and activity. The Pacers are the type of team that, even with the improvements, the Bucks have had trouble with. Mm-hmm. Quick decisions, quick tempo. We have to make multiple efforts on defense and close out and recover and contain penetration, then do it again. That's going to be tough. So how does Milwaukee work to try and control the tempo defensively? Can they get there? Do we have any concerns with the Pacers against switches? Because we've seen in different games where like a Cleveland or a Miami will throw different things at them for different periods of time. Does that help the Bucks to a degree? Can you bog the Pacers down? Or is that why Pascal Siakam is here? So now we can throw it to him in the post. Or is that a win? That's where I get intrigued, because Indiana, it's not solely the tempo. It's still the times where they've been able to kind of start with 18 and keep going. But it's the fact that they keep moving it. And that's where Milwaukee has to find a way to sustain those possessions, keep the ball in front of the drives, try and slow things down that way, try and get Indiana later in the clock, and then see if we can get a stop, push, and be active. I mean, hey, Patrick Beverly and Bobby Portis are going to try and get that crowd as hyped as possible during that game one. So I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion, but if Milwaukee can't defend in transition and they can't keep up with the tempo, it's going to be a really long series for them.
Yeah, like the tempo portion was something I was going to be worried about even before like the Giannis thing happened and the maintenance there, and now the concerns about him being ready in game one. Because to your point, the Pacers don't just push off of misses. They're obviously pushing off of turnovers. They're pushing off of makes, pushing off of made free throws. Like they don't let you rest, really. And I think it does get interesting in the half court because the Pacers do keep up that tempo. They do have Pascal Siakam to kind of switch hunt if they want to get into that bag. But because of some of the players that the Pacers are playing, post-trade and things like that, like they do have help points within the half court, like looking at Andrew Nembhard in particular. And if Pascal isn't directly involved, like he is someone that you can help off of, though he is a good cutter, so you still have to keep an eye on him. Like the Bucks do have avenues to bother Indiana's half-court offense in a way that maybe people aren't anticipating just because of how good Indiana's offense has been this year. So I am curious to see, like, I asked you the question, do you see Indiana playing with the matchups at all? I'm curious to see if Milwaukee taps into that bag at any point. I want to know who gets the Pascal matchup to start for Indiana. I mean, for Milwaukee. Naturally, I think that would just be Giannis. He was there. But do you just give that to Bobby Portis? Do you give that to Brook and say, hey, shoot, we dare you? Or is that an invitation for Indiana to go into more Tyrese Pascal pick and roll? We've talked about their progression throughout the year and what the chemistry building has been like on that front. I think this could be a pretty fun half-court battle. But, again, circling back to something earlier that you said, I do think the transition is probably going to swing it either way in this series. Milwaukee's transition defense has been better under Doc Rivers than it was under Adrian Griffin. But being better might not be enough for a Pacer team that runs like this and will shoot like this.
And until you get a heavy dose of Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis post-ups.
Just like, hey, actually, we're going to slow this all down. You have fun.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a fun matchup. Like the second units are going to be interesting in this one. Like TJ McConnell's going to drive all over the place, but the other bench guys are going to have to knock down shots. So we'll see what that looks like. And for Milwaukee, like we kind of alluded to it in earlier episodes about Malik Beasley probably wanting this matchup more than anyone. Do we see the return of Malik Beasley in this series? Because the three-point shooting hasn't been there for Malik in a little bit. Like, how much does that productivity swing things for Milwaukee?
Well, I will take a gamble and guess if he would like to play more minutes in the playoffs and fulfill his prophecy, he will need to make more shots. Because if not, I can just play Jay Crowder.
Yeah. And that's also a little bit more size. So, yeah. Who are your X factors heading into this matchup?
My X factors for the Indiana Pacers is going to be Miles Turner.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's played. I think he's been a big key for the Pacers, just in general. His ability to pick and roll and finish, get a pocket pass, and a little short roll jumper, pop to a three, space for three. In a series where Milwaukee's bigs could try different things, they could either be in a drop if it's Brook, they could be at the level if Tyrese is involved and has it going. They're going to need him to be aggressive making shots. They're going to need his paint protection on the other end. And I think, especially I know it was a very long time ago, but the Bucks were switching and scram switching before against Indiana. I thought Miles Turner had some really good moments of ducking in and making them pay at times. So I think that's something that he will want to carry over. But the better he plays, the better the Pacers will be. So I think he's the X factor for me. If I go to Milwaukee, it's just the bigs. It's Bobby Portis, it's Brook Lopez. They need them offensively. They need them defensively. They need them to show up. We need rebounds. We need threes. We need post-ups. We need all the defense you can give us. They need them to make sure this has an opportunity to work. I think Dame and his drives are eventually going to pop. I think Dame's going to have a good series. I think Chris Middleton is going to accept the challenge, and, hey, he's going to get more shots, at least if Giannis is not in. Someone else has to elevate, and it's got to be like a two-headed monster. I think it's got to be these two.
I got you. And then just quickly on the big front, especially with Bobby Portis, I was looking up some Tyrese stuff ahead of the pod. 1.12 points per possession on any Tyrese-led pick and roll against the Bucks this year. Obviously a very good number. When Bobby Portis was the screener defender, that went up to 1.9 points per possession, which is a comically high number. Again, not the highest of samples on that front, but to your point about Tyrese getting it going with two on the ball, and the Bucks generally just want to have Bobby Portis at the level. He's going to have to be able to contain the rotations behind that are going to have to be tight with the way, especially with the pace in which the Pacers get into their pick and roll stuff. If Bobby's able to hold serve and if the rotations are tight behind that, Milwaukee naturally has a better chance at defending that half-court offense. So just keeping an eye on that front. As far as the X factors go for me, on the Indiana front, like I am keeping eyes on Andrew Nembhard. Because I would imagine between him and Aaron Nesmith, I think he would get the first crack at Damian Lillard in this one. So naturally his defense is going to be important. Offensively, his usage as a screener, the random cuts that he'll sprinkle in there, and the shooting. Like low to mid 30s, it doesn't move defenses in today's NBA. And if he isn't going to have a lot of usage as a screener, or if they're not going to have him initiating a lot of stuff, to get Tyrese off ball, like that does represent a help point for Milwaukee. And based on how much talent the Pacers have, how fast they play, and some of the problems that they pose Milwaukee in transition or in the half court, any help point would be a nice benefit for the Milwaukee Bucks. So Andrew Nembhard has to make sure that he doesn't become that for Milwaukee, to where they can hide Brook on a random possession or hide Dame in general and let him conserve energy offensively. And so I keep eyes on Andrew Nembhard there. And for Milwaukee, you already mentioned him. Patrick Beverley's going to be the guy for me. If he's going to continue to start, naturally his defense is going to be important against Tyrese Halliburton. Just being an irritant, the screen navigation is going to be big. The shot making when he's spaced, his ability to drive and connect things, that was a great point on your part. It's probably hyperbolic to say like he swings the series, but if he plays well on both ends of the floor, Milwaukee has a much better shot. But to the prediction portion, who do you have winning the series?
It's very hard. If everything were to stand as is right now, I go Pacers in 6.
Okay.
But for better or worse, believe Giannis Antetokounmpo will play in this series. I'm going Bucks in 7.
Okay. A 7-game series between those two should be a lot of fun. I think I go Pacers in 6. Mostly because I just don't know if Giannis is going to be available for game 1. And when he does come back, this is a lower body thing. I don't know if he gets above 85%. Now that 85% based on what he's done against the Pacers this year might just mean he only averages 30, 12, and 5. And so that could naturally be devastating. But I do think the Pacers pose a lot of problems for this Milwaukee defense. And if you don't have Giannis there, Giannis's presence in general is a big reason why him and Bobby Porter's front court works quite a bit. You can have Bobby high up, you can have Giannis clean things up on the back end. If you don't have that at all for game 1 or game 2, or you have a limited version of that, I just find it hard to fathom Milwaukee getting enough stops against this Pacers team. If Giannis is healthier, I probably just pick the Bucks in this series, and I think it's a competitive one. With Giannis out / hampered, and Indiana, again, to give them credit, one, the offense is really good, but they have worked really hard to get better defensively throughout the year. I'd probably go Pacers in 6 in this one. Let's move out west to the other 3-6 matchup. We have the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Phoenix Suns. We'll quickly note on the news front, Grayson Allen getting a 4-year, $70 million extension. So he will be in there. Phoenix had to lock him up because they really just didn't have avenues to replace him based on their salary situation. So quick salute to Grayson Allen. But the Suns won the season series 3-0. I would imagine, as we finish recording this pod and listen to a bunch of other preview stuff, I would imagine this is going to be a very popular upset pick in this series. But my biggest question heading in is, will Anthony Edwards be able to crack the code against Phoenix's defense? Which is not a question I anticipated asking myself heading into the year with some of the concerns that I've had about Phoenix's defense this year and still have with some of their lineups. But Phoenix has done a better job than just about anyone against Anthony Edwards this year. He averaged a shade over 14 points per game in 3 matchups against the Suns this year. And this is without Phoenix having an elite defender on their roster, and certainly not having an elite perimeter guy on their roster. And not that they've created some fancy new defense against Minnesota or against Anthony Edwards in particular. The Suns are not the first or the only team to put 2 on the ball against him. They're not the only team, whenever he puts a 4 in action, to turn those pick and rolls into late switches and then showing help behind that. It's not anything new or novel. But they've kind of played with the tendencies of Anthony Edwards. They've kind of forced him to make good decisions with 2 on the ball. It's less, can he handle the pressure? He gets scared, throws out of bounds. It's more, when you string this out, what is the relief pass that you're making? How quickly are you getting rid of it? Are you making the dump to your actual big? And if it is a late switch, are you reading where the extra help is coming from? Are you making the right kicks? And naturally, are you making the shots when you take them in isolation? Through 3 games against Phoenix, he hasn't been able to do that. He's had poor shooting performances on high volume in the first 2. And on the Sunday matchup, I think he took 7 shots. Did not shoot often at all in that one because of some of the pressure he was seeing. So I think the biggest question for me is, how does Anthony Edwards deal with that? And I think it's oddly why I kind of have confidence in the Wolves in this series, because I don't think that's the version of Anthony Edwards that we see in this playoff series. I find it very hard to believe that the Suns will be able to hold him to that kind of point total, that kind of inefficiency over a series. I think some of the shot making could just bounce back. And if he is able to make quicker decisions on the ball, they don't have anyone that can really guard him. I don't trust Grayson Allen against Anthony Edwards in space. Kevin Durant has done a solid job kind of giving him a cushion and playing with that length. But ultimately, I think Anthony Edwards can get to his spots against KD. And if he's able to do that and dictate terms, that should open things up for the rest of the offense. But, zooming out again, it kind of starts with Anthony Edwards for me. What does he do against what Phoenix is trying to do against him defensively?
Here's the deal, right? I'm going to start with something I had written down and I've been thinking about the whole time. Is Phoenix just confident they can defend Minnesota no matter what? Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned Anthony Edwards, and I like that. That's a good shot. Phoenix closer to the level against Anthony Edwards. Suns were totally fine with late helps. They were totally fine committing help from the nail and forcing Anthony Edwards to make a kick. They were always working to take away Anthony Edwards' space whenever he would start to look to get into a rhythm, one-on-one attack. Mm-hmm. There were people to take away the driving lanes. And so he has to balance those quick decisions. He also has to find room to attack. But even whenever they did throw in switches, they were still showing bodies at the nail, even off Cat. And I think it goes into the larger portion of, I think Phoenix feels like they can just defend Minnesota. They're comfortable switching against Karl Anthony Towns. They even put Bradley Beal on him. Obviously, Cat's just coming back. They've seen this before. The key is now, where's Cat going to catch the ball? When is he going to look to drive? Is he outside the three-point line? Is he near the elbow? Is he going with the turbo button or then extending his arm? Is he setting up, jabbing, using his size? Guess what else they did to Cat? They showed double teams on Cat in the post. All of this is to disrupt rhythm. So yes, Ant, we're giving you switches. We're giving you two on the ball. We're giving you drop into a late switch. We're not giving you the same thing. Cat, we're switching, but we're also going to double a few of these post-ups. We're not giving you the same thing. They're comfortable rotating against Rudy Gobert on the short roll. I think Rudy Gobert has been really, really good for the Wolves with this pick and roll play. But a Phoenix is fine with being there on the catch and forcing him to catch the ball and make short roll decision after short roll decision. Does that lessen their pick and roll attack? Does that lessen the likelihood you look for Rudy Gobert on the roll? Does that impact Minnesota's overall offensive thought process? Does it make them bog down? Mike Conley has been fantastic to me all year long. Navigating drop, he's always done a really good job of attacking the space, engaging the big, forcing help, finding a lob, or getting a kick. You know what Nurk did? Nurk just rolled and stayed in the drop and said, hey, Grayson Allen, whoever it is, you navigate, you get back in front. Mm-hmm. Taking plays off the table. So if it's a scenario where Minnesota is going to allow Phoenix to look at their starting lineup, for example, and say, hey, Jay McDaniels, you have to beat us with shots or drives. Mike, we don't think you'll shoot enough. And Rudy, Cat, and Ant, we don't think you're going to make enough good decisions. That's where it gets tricky. Mm-hmm. Hey, you want to use Kyle Anderson with Naz Reid and Cat off the bench and let those two bigs fly off a bunch of screens? Phoenix switched all that. Now what are you doing? And so that's why I take it beyond Anthony Edwards. Minnesota as a whole has to trust their offense. Mm-hmm. They have to trust the movement. They have to move from side to side. If Phoenix is going to show that much help, guess what you need to do? Make them recover. Make them make multiple efforts. Make them continue to defend and sustain that defense. Because Phoenix can defend. It's just always been, where's the breakdown going to be? Minnesota has to trust that they can get to the breakdown. It can't become, oh, well, we have to hunt this Cat matchup. Now Ant has to hunt this matchup. Now we have to. No, you play. Just go out and play. Make the right reads you made all year. If you get stuck in this, you're going to be in trouble. Go from side to side. Don't overexplore one option and bog down. You got to test how committed Phoenix is to defending you over the course of this series. Mm-hmm. Else you're going to go ahead and hand it to them. I mean, this is the high level. It's going to be an upset pick because of recency bias, and that's fair because Phoenix played a heck of a game yesterday, and they sent a heck of a message. And This is the high level of what Phoenix can do in the playoffs. This is the vision. This is it. We've asked the questions all the time. And I said, I don't know what to do with Phoenix. I know you don't want to see them now. You don't.
This is why.
Because look, in one game, everything Minnesota has worked through, on all the questions they've answered on this journey, pop right back up. Because they have to see this team in a series now. Mm-hmm. And now we're thinking, who does Karl Anthony Towns guard? And I'm not trying to be unfair, because again, he is coming right back off injury. But this ain't the series for that.
It is not.
And so a big thing about this is going to be Phoenix's shot making. How much can Minnesota live with that? How much shot making can they live with? And you go back if you're listening and watching, go watch the start of that Phoenix Minnesota game. KD hits a shot over Devin Booker. Booker hits a pull-up three and pick and roll. Bradley Beal hits a post-up against Mike Conley. Now they say, hey, Cat, you can defend a pick and roll. Let's get you switched. You navigate. Here's a roll. You navigate. You didn't help. Here's a kick. Here's a pull-up three. They mixed all that in early in the first quarter. And that's where it's going to get tricky. How much of that can you live with if you're Minnesota? When do you blink? Mm-hmm. If you're Phoenix, how do you balance having to make those shots to unlock the ceiling with relying on just those.
Mm-hmm.
Because they knock those shots down, Minnesota has turned the activity up. You open a lot of things up.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where it gets fun with this matchup. Like, you already alluded to the fact that, like, Cash is getting back. But just looking at some of the other defenders that they have, like, in theory, the Wolves, at least out west, probably have the best cast of, we have guys that we feel comfortable defending Devin Booker, defending Bradley Beal, defending Kevin Durant. And so if the Suns don't move it, or if they don't make enough shots to where they are forcing extra attention and open up swings from there, like, this could become a bit of a defensive, just kind of a bogged down game between the two. It's not like the Wolves don't play with a ton of pace. The Suns don't play with a ton of pace. This could become a half court battle. And, like, in a vacuum, I do trust Minnesota's defense a lot more than I trust Phoenix's, both in terms of personnel and just what they've been able to do all year long. And that's where, again, I look at what Anthony Edwards has done and, just the Wolves offense in general. I think all the questions that you mentioned, like, those are all valid. Circling back to the Anthony Edwards thing, that's why I look at not just the numbers, which 14.3 points per game, one of the lowest in the league against any opponent for Anthony Edwards, 0.84 points per possession on any trip featuring an Anthony Edwards pick and roll against Phoenix. I think that's like one of the 5 lowest marks he had against any team this year. I look at those and then I actually watch what happened in those. He absolutely has to figure out the help that he's being shown, particularly after those late switches. But, like, if he navigates that portion, like, I do think a lot opens up for Minnesota. And I don't know. Like, I feel kind of confident with this Minnesota group. But I guess to circle back to what you mentioned about Cat, though, like, the defense thing, you sprinkled that in during the watch party, and that has broken me since the first time you asked. Because, like, I do wonder who he gets initially. And beyond that, like, what coverage is he going to be in? Are they going to switch him and say, well, fine, we'll switch this out. We know it ain't great, but Nurk's probably going to be in the dunker spot or short corner. Switch, do your best to funnel the ball handler to their weak hand or funnel him to the side with the most guys on it. We have Rudy back there. Let's see what you can do. Now, there are obviously built-in counters for that. If you're Phoenix, you can have Nurk setting pin-in screens or flare screens. You can move him around. You can space him up high if you want to and kind of make the help angles for Rudy more difficult. There are built-in counters. But in general, like, there are some safeguards to the stuff. And circling back to your shot-making point, Phoenix brought these guys together because they can just toss whatever scheme you throw over the top rope. They can also bog down. We've also seen, throughout the year, it's gotten better over the last month, quiet as kept. But overall, this year, Phoenix has been one of the worst fourth-quarter offenses in the league this year. And so can Minnesota do enough, to your how much of the tough shot making can they live with? They may have more leniency with that heading into the series, just because, one, they trust their defenders, but two, Phoenix hasn't consistently proven it late in games. That can flip on his head, but, like, at least with the sample that they're working with right now, that might be a safer bet than you would anticipate based on what they've done and who Minnesota has.
You can live with it until you can't.
That's true. That's very true.
That's the thing. Yes, the shot making is key, but if they do it, you can live with it until you can't. That's the toughest part about it. Some people would rather talk about tanking playing games. But yeah, you got it's competitive. It's competing. It's in there. The one thing to bounce off your Cat point, who's he going to match up with? Phoenix did a really good job of saying, Grayson Allen, you do a whole bunch of different stuff. You be a screener on ball. You be a screener on ball, so Cat will switch, and now he has to navigate an actual pick and roll. You be a screener off ball, so now Cat, who thinks he's spaced, is actually defending a wide pin down, which features any number of really good players coming off of it. Hey, if he gets cross-matched in transition, that's Kevin Durant. You're forcing him to help him recover from different spots on the floor. So that for me is the tricky part. If I'm Minnesota, you got to take the drives off the table. That's the biggest one for me. You got to take the drives off the table. Pick your poison, live with it, but you cannot let Cat switch, you show help with Jaden McDaniels, and now it's a kick to Grayson Allen who drives and finishes. That can't be part of the program.
Yeah. It gets dicey. I guess to circle on that, do you envision Cat closing all of these games for Minnesota? Do you think they eventually land on, like, Rudy plus Kyle Anderson or Rudy plus Nas? If they're worried about Cat containing drives or just the way that the Suns are moving him around? And if they do press that button, do you think Minnesota can live with that?
I would anticipate Cat finishes these games.
Okay.
I mean, look, this is a challenge. The Phoenix Suns are one of the tougher challenges Minnesota would have to deal with in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not an impossible one, but they're going to have to work.
I got you. Who are your X factors heading into this one?
My X factor, shot making. We're going to make some shots. Who's your X factor?
I have Cat from Minnesota for all the reasons we've discussed. Will he knock down the threes that are going to be given to him? If they do switch against him, can he navigate those drives? Can he do well enough on post-ups? If they double those post-ups, not only will he locate the open guy, will he make the appropriate pass? Because as I've talked about, over the past couple of years, I love Cat as a passer in terms of just the talent level he has. Your skip to the corner doesn't have to be an overhead skip to the corner. And now you're dealing with pass placement stuff, and now what should have been an advantage is your shooter reaching down to this left to catch the ball because it's low, and now the advantage is gone. So Cat has to pick out the right pass and make the right pass. And then defensively, who he's guarding or defend, regardless of who he's guarding, can he contain well enough? So I don't want to rehash all of that stuff, but Cat for me, and then Yusuf Nurkic is going to be the X factor for me. How well is the finishing? And defensively, again, I think he's done a solid job throughout these meetings so far, but he's going to have to maintain that. Especially when he's at the level. He's got to make sure those roles don't slip behind him. He's not opening up lob opportunities because Minnesota does do a good job of mixing up their spacing beyond some of those Ant Rudy pick and rolls or Mike Conley Rudy pick and rolls. They will empty a side, as you've alluded to many times this year. So he has to make sure that he is making sure the corner isn't turned, but he's not giving up the lobs behind him, especially once Minnesota starts moving guys around the spacers. So I'm just looking at the bigs right now. I think that's where I land. Who do you have winning this series?
Who do you have winning this series?
I have Minnie in 7.
You have Minnie in 7, huh?
I have Minnie in 7.
Suns in 6.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think ultimately, naturally, you don't want anybody to get hurt ever, but barring either more injury, I think this is going to be a really fun series on both sides. Very stressful for the fan bases involved. Because, buddy, a lot of money involved between both of these teams. If either of those teams are a first-round exit, off-season talk will get funny. Okay, to the East, as we dig into the 4-5s and close things out, the Cavs and the Magic season series tied at 2 games apiece. A couple of really good defenses. Some offenses that we've had questions about throughout the year, despite some of the talented all-star caliber guys that they have. I start with who wins the tempo battle. We've talked about Orlando's offense and, the lack of shooting, but quality spacing principles. I have been railing against their lack of transition pushing all year long. This feels like a series in which they are going to have to get the easy ones wherever they can. Because Cleveland, particularly in the front court, they just have a lot of length that you have to navigate between Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And I don't want Cleveland setting up shop if I'm Orlando. I think they're going to have to play a little bit faster than they would like to in this one. Not necessarily 7 seconds or less Suns or anything like that to get them completely away from who they are. But I do think the tempo is going to have to improve a little bit for Orlando. And with Cleveland, not necessarily the transition stuff, but it's something that you in particular hammered. How early are they getting into their actions so they can get into their second stuff or their third option within a set? I think whoever can find a comfortable tempo within the half court or just a comfortable tempo overall is going to feel better about their chances in this series. I think either defense can just shut down this offense. I start with the tempo.
The tempo, huh? For both teams?
Yes.
There's only one place to start here, baby. It's real hoop.
There you go.
You like defense?
Yeah, for anyone that complains about the NBA, they don't play defense no more. They don't post up no more. This is for you.
Well, I think a couple things are going to be interesting with the tempo point. With Cleveland, we've seen them do it. The question is going to be their health. Not because, obviously health, number one reason, we all know that. What does that do to their offensive flow? Are the cuts the same? Is the timing the same? Orlando's a physical defense. Do they put them in a different position? Do they bog down because of the activity and the physical nature of Orlando's defense? Does Orlando make quick decisions on the other end? Who do they let to attack? What type of actions they try and run? Are they going to try and put Mitchell and Garland in action early and then play out of it? Does that play into Cleveland's hands? Because here's the question. I've asked you it before. I'll ask it again. Does Cleveland do to Orlando what New York did to them? Orlando, we know you have talent. We know you can guard. You got to beat us.
Mm-hmm.
And so however you choose to defend Paolo, if it's doubles in the post, if it's drop and pick and roll, if it's early help, when he's set to isolate, we're forcing these passes to these people, and they have to beat us over the course of this series.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm really curious to see how Paolo handles this series. One, I'm curious to see who defends Paolo in this one, which I guess I'll use this opportunity to say I have no idea what Dean Wade's availability is going to be in this series as a guy that likely comes off the bench as like a backup four, but someone that could slide in and defend Paolo so you could have the bigs away from him. Without that club in the bag for Cleveland, like it does get interesting. I would imagine we see a lot of Evan Mobley early on because I don't know if they start Isaac Okoro in this one. You want to maximize the spacing against the Orlando group. But I am curious to see how Paolo navigates this. If he does get double teams, good. What kind of decisions is he making from there? How quickly is he getting off of it? I don't have questions about passing ability for him. I think he's done a better job as the year's gone on at diagnosing where the doubles are coming from and hitting guys from there. And, to tie into the overall spacing and just off ball point for Orlando, like they do have good cutters up and down the roster. And so Cleveland isn't locked in behind doubles. Orlando can find some stuff. And in particular, Cleveland is going to have to keep eyes on Jalen Suggs at all times. Because he is liable to just get 2 or 3 free ones in the half court just because you lose track of him as a cutter. Or if it's just an entry pass to Paolo, he cuts through and now he's cutting again. You have to keep an eye on what Jalen Suggs is going to do there. Beyond that, though, going to the Cleveland side, because that's to your point, like they have done it. I do wonder if any of the Garland Mitchell wonkiness that we've seen sprinkled in throughout the second half of the year, just what is the usage going to look like between those two? And how does that impact what Cleveland's tempo and what their pacing is going to look like in the half court? Because I don't know if they can afford for it to get my turn, your tourney against this Orlando defense. I would imagine Suggs gets the Mitchell matchup. If they're starting Gary Harris, I guess he would get Darius Garland in that case. But Orlando does have a collective size to kind of bother things. To that point, because I would guess it's going to be drop against Garland. How do you feel about Garland heading into this series?
Great. He just got to make plays. He's one of the X factors. If they're going to play drop against him, he's going to have an opportunity to get downhill and make plays, make shots, and open things up for his bigs, which he's done for most of the season. Mm-hmm. The shooting just hasn't been the same. Like here's 3 keys for Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell's legs work well enough to deal with Jalen Suggs during this series. Mm-hmm. Can Darius Garland make the right reads and make the right plays? And are the bigs ready to do their job offensively? Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing about Orlando. Great defense, heavily lean on the low man as far as weak side rotations, which is very familiar to the New York Knicks. And the Cleveland Cavaliers made a whole lot of moves this season to be better against that coverage. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I wrote is, did Cleveland learn their lesson? You've added movement. You've added spacing. You have different lineups out there. Are you going to be able to take advantage of it? Is Jared Allen going to continue to roll with force and mix in finishes and kick? Can you get empty corner action? Can you get the right shooter in the right corner? Are they going to knock down shots? Is it going to change how Orlando guards them?
Yeah, and to your
Those
point
are the
about
keys to me.
I got you. And to your point about kind of countering that aggressive help and some of the guys they added, Max Strus, 35% from 3 against the Magic this year. George Niang, 30% from 3 against the Magic this year. Those guys, very dull analysis here, but those guys are going to be part of answering, can they puncture this Orlando defense? If they are more aggressive with their rotations, they're going to have to knock down shots and kind of loosen things up in the half court there. Also, very interesting Evan Mobley series, to your point. Because one, again, I do think we're going to see a heavy dose of him on Paolo in this one, depending on what Dean Wade's availability is going to be, and depending on how much Cleveland wants to play Isaac Okoro in this series. How well will he do against Paolo? And, on the opposite end, how do the Magic move Paolo around? Like, do we see them tap more, not just the cross screens to lead into post-ups, but what kind of other screens are going to run Paolo off of to make Evan Mobley navigate? And are you able to create any kind of openings from there? I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And with Orlando,
that's Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. Come here. That's all that is.
There you go. And I looked that up earlier this morning. No team has put Mitchell and Garland more pick and roll actions defensively than the Orlando Magic, with them as a screener defender. So we're going to see a heavy dose of Powell calling one of those guys up to try to attack. Franz Wagner, who honestly, that was going to be the free throw I had for you. Which number 2 do you trust more heading into this series, Franz or Darius Garland? Because
Darius Garland.
A quick Garland for you. Because I do feel like Franz could flip this series. Like the drives in particular be important. But again, he just has not shot the ball well this season. And like some of that is just injury and losing the rhythm there, but he just hasn't been able to knock down shots from the perimeter. And if he's not able to get the pull-up going or even the spot-ups, if you're spacing him one pass away from Paolo, makes it a little bit easier for Orlando to load up. And if he becomes the we funnel shots to this guy person, I don't feel great about Orlando's chances if that's where it gets. So I am keeping an eye on Franz's usage and just in general his comfort as a jump shooter in this one.
Well, one thing that intrigued me, there's a couple times where Cleveland actually trapped Franz in pick and roll. And I think the Evan Mobley-Paolo matchup could allow for Cleveland to show help and dig, but also recover and let Evan Mobley contest. So I think there's intriguing things. Now the question is, how much do they want Jared Allen on Paolo? How much comfort do they have switching? That's where it gets interesting. But yeah.
Which team do you trust more against switching heading into this one? Is it Cleveland or Orlando?
Cleveland.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Who's your X factor heading into this
one? Really Darius Garland. Like I could say Max Strus, I could say George Niang, I could say the bigs, which I kind of did, but Darius Garland is going to have to take and make the shots to help elevate this team if they want to win a playoff series.
Gotcha. Evan Mobley for me, just because of his role on both ends of the floor. We already went through that, so I'll go through that one quickly. Cole Anthony for me for Orlando. I think Jalen Suggs is really going to be the easy one. He's going to get the Donovan Mitchell assignment. The random pull-ups from him are going to be important. The drives are going to be important. Again, when he's off the ball, knocking down shots or cutting or screening, going to be important. But Cole Anthony has been a very important part of what has been one of the best benches in the NBA this year for Orlando. I remember a few episodes ago, I asked you about Orlando's rotation and what we see happening there, if it's going to shrink at all heading in. But beyond that, his shot making, his pick and roll play is going to be very important. I do think if there's an edge that Orlando has, especially with some of the health concerns on Cleveland's side, like Orlando's bench is better than Cleveland's. And so even if Cleveland stars are able to get off to a good start, like it wouldn't surprise me at all if their second unit for Orlando is able to kind of close in those gaps or just take leads because of how well they play, how much quicker they play than their starters. When you see Franz with the bench, that's likely where he's most comfortable, or that's been where he's been most comfortable in some of those lineups. But Cole Anthony, his ability to make plays and pick and roll, his ability to pull up, the timely offensive rebounds for him, and his usage as a screener has kind of gone under the radar for Orlando, either feeding mismatches or getting the random short roll opportunities there. So I think Cole can turn the tide of a couple of games in this one. Who do you have winning the series?
The Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay. This is Cleveland in, what you got, 5, 6?
6.
Okay. I also leave Cleveland in 6, as much as I would like to pick Orlando for the bid.
You did all that to pick Cleveland?
I want to pick Orlando. I do.
Then do it.
You know what? Magic in 7.
That's all these switches, and now you want to pick Orlando. Push back on pick them.
Unbelievable. You know what? Orlando in 7. They played a song after the 7th game. They get to the 2nd round. The Jamal Mosley fest continues. All right, let's go out west. We will close things out with the Clippers and the Mavericks. Naturally, we have not seen Kawhi for, I think, 2.5 weeks at this point. So we will see. Hopefully we get an update soon on what his status is. Various Clipper reporters have tried to ask Ty Lue about if Kawhi is going to be ready for game 1. He has been coy. So we will throw that at the beginning. But the Clippers won the season series 2-1 in this one. My big question, aside from the Kawhi health, because I am curious to see what coverage the Clippers start with against Luka. When you are dealing with a guy as talented as Luka Doncic, naturally, I don't think you can land on, we are just going to do this the entire game. There is going to be a blend. But I am curious to see, like, are they going to start with Zubac at the level? Are they going to start with him in a drop? Are they going to go switch and double to start? And then what do they adjust to from there? Because, again, they're going to have to mix up things against Luka. But it is curious, like, they haven't blitzed Luka as often as I would have anticipated, like going through some of their data in some of those pick and rolls. But I want to see like where they start and if they're able to not Luka off rhythm at all to kind of start off these games.
I mean, I don't anticipate them starting with switch and double. Mm-hmm. That's usually they're not ace in the hole, but usually, hey, let's see what you got. Did you ding the drop? Did you ding at the level? I wouldn't be surprised if they started with that at the level, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they started with drop. I guess the thing is, how much does it matter? Mm. That sounds wild, but how much does it matter when Luka is probably going to do what Luka is going to do, correct? Mm-hmm. In the fourth quarter, you can always ramp it up. We can double, we can attack, we can show help, be active. This is the trickiest part about this series. It's Dallas, it's the Clippers. Again, it's Dallas, probably the strongest they've been, you could argue. It's the Clippers, the strongest they've been. And they each have some of the same issues they have to figure out. For Dallas, I really like their defense. I like their lineup. Are they going to be able to make enough shots? And if I'm the Clippers, Kyrie, we're going to try and make it as hard as we can on you. Luka, we respect and know what you can do. Ball's got to go to these guys. Mm-hmm. They got to beat us.
Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Dante Exum, come on down.
And if Dallas, I mean, it's set up. That's been the key. We've talked about it over and over. When these guys sign to Dallas, that's the role. That's the template. You got to be able to make timely plays. You got to be able to keep an advantage. You got to be able to knock down open shots. Is that just the bit? Mm-hmm. Like we stay and drop, go ahead and hit pull-ups, step backs. We don't like it that much. Kyrie, try and make it tough on you, contest, but those guys got to beat us.
I feel you. Like, that's where some of the drop or the late switch stuff for the Clippers get interesting. Just to see, like, how much they want to flatten things out versus, okay, we are just sending help to Luka. We are sending help to Kyrie. We're just going to put two on the ball, but with the caveat that these guys are going to be the ones to take the shots. So these guys are going to be the ones to make the plays. Like, I don't think the Clippers can afford to live in a super rotation-heavy world. So I think it is going to take the correct blend there. I'm more curious to see like how they deal with Kyrie. Because zooming outside the Clippers world, like we've seen teams say, okay, fine, Luka, you're going to do what you do. We're going to send two to Kyrie to make sure it's not both of y'all going off. And like, I don't know if the Clippers get to that point against the Mavs, but like that's something that I had in the back of my mind because other teams have tried to do that. Where it feels like, it sounds weird to say they prioritize Kyrie more than they prioritize Luka, but like it feels like it's more, we can't have both of y'all. You're probably the easier one to take away. Let's get you out of here. Like it's a similar conversation we've had about Denver, where obviously Jokic is the better player, and there really isn't an answer for him. Let's put all this length on Jamal Murray. Let's send extra help to Jamal Murray where we can to make sure it's not both of you. We're taking away at least one of you guys. So I do wonder if the Clippers do reach a point like midway through the series where, all right, Luka's averaging 35, 9, and 7. He's shooting 40% from three right now. Like, we're not going to hold Luka to 17 points. Kyrie's also averaging 27 points right now. Let's see if we can get this down to 22.
Is that not the beauty of having Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and Terrence Mann in that lineup?
It should be. It should be.
Not that Kyrie very much cares about length or size,
yeah.
But
he just
theory, the beauty of having that matchup. I mean, I guess for me, it's like how if the Clippers don't cooperate in pick and roll and they go drop or late switch, well, hopefully they don't switch Zubac on there immediately because we know what's going to happen there. It's on site. How often does Luka look to cycle the matchups? Mm-hmm. And then how do the Clippers respond? I guess would be my question. Do they stick with switches? Do they then go to switch and double? That's where I think it gets fun. I just don't know. If I'm the Clippers, when do I adjust? When do I tap that button? How many shots do they have to make before I make a move? Because Luka's going to take over any scheme you want to throw at him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I think to your point, like that's going to be the fun of it. And even circling back to, again, the beauty of having Paul George, Kawhi, Terrence Mann, like you should be able to have a little bit more defensive versatility just because you feel a little bit better about who you have matching up initially. But if Kawhi isn't there or Kawhi isn't himself, like one, I don't know if Kawhi initially gets the Luka matchup. That may be, let's start with Terrence Mann, do your best. Or Paul George, you take Luka, Terrence Mann, you get Kyrie, and we try to conserve Kawhi throughout the game, but then in the fourth quarter, we switch that up. I wonder how much damage Luka's able to do if he doesn't get Kawhi to start. I guess, to circle back to your question, like I wonder how much cycling Luka even wants to do early on. I feel like there's the strategic element to Luka saying, let me cycle through all these guys. And there's also just a pride thing. It's like, oh, I'm just cooking. Kind of like the Rockets game not too long ago, where it's like, you know what? I can just pick on Fred if I want to because of the size thing. He's obviously a good defender, but he's smaller. No. I want Fred. I want Dylan. I want Jock Landale. I want Jabari Smith Jr. Let's just do this. I wonder if he does decide, let me just hammer this and just stay here for a little bit. I want to see how Luka approaches this one. But going back to the role player point and just kind of fumbling shots, like one of the things I had in this one is just how comfortable the role players are going to be against switches in this series. I do think, depending on how the Clippers decide to match up with Dallas, it's going to be PJ Washington against some switches, in particular, on the other side of the table. Depending on how the Mavs decide they want to match up, some of those other role guys are going to get switches as well. Like if Terrence Mann's being used as a screener, in particular, if that's going to be a switch, what do the Mavericks do after that? Is that going to be the switch and double zone if the Mavericks want to go to that button? Just because they don't trust Terrence Mann as a shooter. Like I am curious to see what they do against that. How quickly that work. I would say the switch attacking, as a scorer is probably more so in the PJ Washington realm for me. But I think he's my X factor for Dallas to spoil that one. I think his work as a spacer, as a driver, as a screener, and I would imagine he's going to see a lot of Kawhi Leonard or Paul George defensively. Well, him being the matchup against them defensively, rather. He's going to be important. And I want to see what kind of offensive production they get from him. Because we saw early on when he got there, very impressed with the defensive work that he was putting in. He wasn't making shots. He's moved deeper into the Mavs stint right now. The defense has still been good, but now you're starting to see, if he's shooting 40% from three on top of this, the Mavericks are just going to win the minutes that he's on the floor. Like that collection of size and skills and that versatility on both ends, like it just unlocks so much for Dallas. So I am curious to see what that looks like there. Also on the Clippers front, that's something that we've asked of the Clippers, throughout the year. Like, how often can they go small in this matchup? Or how much do you trust their small ball lineups in this matchup?
How much do I trust their small ball lineups? It depends. Mm-hmm. It depends on who they're playing against. If you're going small, does that mean Maxi Kleber comes on the court? Mm-hmm. So it depends. Who do you guard? Who do you trust Russell Westbrook to guard?
Like, do you? Because I don't think you want to put Russ on, or you're not putting him on Luka. I don't think you want to put him on Kyrie, even though I'm sure he would be very much up for that challenge if he wants to do that. Would it be, if they're closing games with Dante Exum, would it be Dante?
Could be. But then, is it height that's the problem? Is it switching that's the problem? Is it offense is the problem? Do you play in the Dallas's defense's hand? So I don't know if small ball is going to be the key. Mm-hmm. It could help. But now, are you doing small ball because Luka has torched you?
Mm-hmm. I guess that's probably that's probably the lens I'm thinking of it. Just because, as you've alluded to already, like Luka has had fun with the Zubats matchup, and the drop from Zubats to Mason Plumlee or Daniel Tice defensively, like that, I'll just say respectfully, there is a gap there. I do wonder if they lean more Tice than Plumlee in this one just because of the switchability of Tice, what that looks like. But I just wonder if Ty Lue just says, okay, if Zoo isn't working, let's just maximize the space and or speed that we have on the floor. If we're going to have to send help, let's at least get some speed on the floor. And for a team like, Dallas is playing faster this year. I think they ranked top 10 in pace this year. But if we do want to try to find some opportunistic buckets in transition, like having Russ in should help us do that. And so I guess that's where my mind kind of goes. Like if Zubats becomes less of an option because of either defense or if he's getting short roll opportunities, he isn't finishing at a high enough level, stuff like that. If they tend to go small there, and how you feel about those lineups. Who is your X factor for the series?
I would probably say, I think Norman Powell for the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a big key. For me with Dallas, I'd probably say PJ Washington.
Yeah, got you. We are on the same page with PJ Washington. Zubats was mine for the Clippers. Again, it's going to have to hold up defensively. I think he'll naturally help the rebounding on both ends. If he does have...
How you going to hold up? You see how Luka looks at that man? What is he to hold up?
By doing his best, man. Just by doing his best.
What do you mean doing his best? Luka saw him for 0.2 seconds at the level and immediately went to a step back animation. What you mean?
He did. Put the hand up, hope he misses. You just got to get 23 plus minutes. You got to get 23 minutes from Zubats. You got to get at least 23. If he isn't completely blitzed in those minutes, I think you tip your cap for the Clippers. You take that. You try to piece out the other, 25 or fewer, depending if they ramp up the minutes for Zubats. But you feel out the rest from there. But he can't be completely taken off the table. Like, I do feel a lot worse about the Clippers if he just can't play. So that is where I am there. Who do you have winning this series?
I'm going to take the underdog Clippers.
Okay.
In 7. To finish the story with the YouTube commenters.
That's a good bit. I will take the Dallas Mavericks in 6 in this one.
This is one of those series I just want to see. Because I got a million thoughts in my head on what this could look like, and I want to see what they try and do. Hit the horns, man. We're over time. I'm about to get yelled at.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to and or watching this episode of The Duncan Spot. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us. We are on Apple, Spotify, RIP Google, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. If you are watching this on JJ Reddit's YouTube channel and you haven't subscribed to JJ Reddit's YouTube channel, you should probably subscribe to JJ Reddit's YouTube channel. We are here every Tuesday. That's the day after Monday, the day before Wednesday. But there's going to be great content sprinkled in throughout the week overall. So tap in if you haven't already. You can follow me on Twitter at Nekias NBA. You can follow Steve on Twitter at SteveJones20. Join the Duncan Spot community on Twitter. We're having fun discussions in there. Join us for our online Duncan Spot watch parties. If you have a League Pass account, you are able to watch basketball games with us as we transition to playoff time. I think you would have to second screen it with us unless you're an international League Pass viewer. But either way, we're watching plenty of hoops, going to be breaking things down live. So you will be able to see that regardless if you have a League Pass account or not. The link to the room should be hyperlinked in the podcast description for the audio folks and the YouTube folks. Just click on the description for the pod. You will see that link. Enter your information. It is free, no shenanigans. Again, live breakdowns. And in general, it is a safe space for you. So if you want to vent about live, talk about music, ask us questions, whatever the case may be, we do plenty of that. We have fun. We go live virtually every day. We will be live for the Tuesday play-in game. So tap in with us. And with that, we will catch y'all later in the week.
They said Chauncey Billups staying.
Good for him.